WHO. We've had them before on our sessions. We've had them before, and they have been speaking to us on many matters regarding regarding the classification of diseases. There's a very interesting session we had with them prior, whereby we were discussing on how do we classify, how do we write on the death notifications, how do we classify the deaths, and today is just a further discussion on the same. But more on the ICD classification. I'm going to invite Dr. Drotti. If you're there, you can start us off. You can give us your further introduction. Dr. Benson Drotti is a leading, just a brief as he comes on, he's a leading health system expert with experience spanning over 2 decades. He has been instrumental in the transformation of health systems in many African countries, particularly focusing on strengthening national health information system, where he is regarded as an authority in the African region and globally. So in addition, he's passionate about the health sector monitoring and performance assessment through generation and analysis of health data. He's a specialist in epidemiological modeling, sector monitoring, survey designs, and implementation, and setting up and maintaining of civil registration and vital statistics system, where he has been instrumental in the introduction of the ICD11 in the region and capacity building on certification and coding of causes of death. Benson has played an instrumental role in resource mobilization for health information systems strengthening, which has had tremendous impact in many African countries. At present, he heads the Health Information System team at the World Health Organization Regional Office for Africa. He's a graduate of Makerere University, Kampala, Uganda, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in medicine and surgery. After 7 years of clinical practice, he obtained a Master's of Science in International Health from Royal Tropical Institute, Free University in the Netherlands, and a postgraduate diploma in epidemiology and doctorate in public health from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So it's my pleasure to introduce him and to have him in this session. And feel free as participants to participate, to ask your question and answers in the Q&A section. For any CPD related questions, feel free to email the knhcpd@gmail.com. Do enjoy the session. Dr. Karingo Agnes from Kenyatta National Hospital. Karibu, Dr. Drotti.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you just help confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, I want to say how honored I feel to be invited to talk to you again, the team in Kenya. And as has just been explained previously, we talked about medical certification of cause of death. And then today we are going to talk about international classification of disease. Okay, so before we start, if you have, if you can just open your browser, either Chrome or Firefox or any of the browsers that you have in a computer, I would like you to type on the browser icd.who.int. You should be able to open a page, a landing page for ICD11. So I'll give you maybe 1 minute to do that. You just type icd.who.int. It should be able to take you to the landing page for ICD11. So for those of you who have been able to open the web page, if you see somewhere there, you should be able to see something, the browser. Oh, okay. You are sharing the screen from your side, right? Okay. So you should be able to see the browser, and you see there's something that called the ICD browser. The ICD browser, it gives a very quick glance into the content of ICD11. Then just below where you see the browser, you can actually click on the browser, just see what is there. You just see like a table of content. If you click on the ICD browser, you see a table of the content. And below the ICD browser, you will see something called the ICD coding tool. The ICD11 coding tool. And this tool is for coding, is for assigning the international cause of, the international code for either disease or cause of death. And also below that, you'll be able to see many other things. Of course, also if you look across, you will see something called ICD API. API is when you want to integrate ICD11 coding tool into any system or electronic medical record system. This is the API that will help you. And then also on that same page, you should be able to see something to do with the implementation guide. There's a section where they say learning more or see more, where you can have sessions on training sessions, videos, and many other things. And further right to that page, you should be able to see something called the maintenance platform. I will say something more about the maintenance platform, but what I can say at this stage is that the maintenance platform is where new information entering ICD11 is being developed. So those of you who are able to contribute to improving the ICD11, you will be able to register and actually contribute through this maintenance platform. Okay, so I now want you to go back to the coding tool. Click on the ICD11 coding tool. Click on the ICD11 coding tool, and when you click on that, it will open for you a search box somewhere on top. And if you have opened the search, if you have opened the ICD coding tool and you're able to see the search box, I would like you to identify the international codes for the following conditions. The first is malaria. The second is severe acute respiratory syndrome. The third is diabetes cataract due to type 1 diabetes. And the fourth, open fracture shaft of the left tibia. So try to get the international codes for these conditions. Don't mind if you don't get it. That's why we're here. But try to fail. First try to fail, don't fail to try. So you can write the codes down, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes just to do that. And I'm beginning to time right now. 5 minutes to try to get the international codes for these 4 conditions. For people who are just joining in, we are trying to get the international code for the 4 conditions at the bottom of the slide. Malaria, severe acute respiratory syndrome, diabetes cataract due to type 1 diabetes, and open fracture shaft of the left tibia. And to reach there, you first you put in the browser icd.who.int. It will take you to a landing page where you will see many things, including what we call ICD11 coding tool. And when you click on the coding tool, it will open for you a page where you see a search box. So inside that search box, you can type these disease conditions or diagnosis, and then you should be able to obtain the ICD11 code for them. You can write them down. and you'll compare with the ones I have done. So you have 3 minutes to go. By now, you should be halfway through identifying the codes for the 4 diagnoses. So you have 2 minutes to go. So you should be finishing. You have 1 minute to go. You should be winding up now. We have 30 seconds. All right, so I think it's time up now. So let us see what you are able to get. I know that Kenya, I know that I'm trying to, let me share my screen again, actually, because I'm not able to move. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm able to move my screen now. So, I know that Kenya has been implementing ICD-10, and there are many people actually in Kenya right now, as I speak, who are experts in coding in ICD-10 and ICD-11. From the ministry, we have Samuel Cheburet and his team and others. They're very good in this. So the capacity actually to do coding in Kenya is very good. And so I will expect you to have got these codes which I've put in blue. If you didn't find, that is perfectly fine. In fact, my aim was to make sure that you fail to get the codes. If you got all of it, then you don't need to be here. But if you fail to get it, and then that means I'll be creating an impact. So it's actually easier to code in ICD11. And so this is really what we will be looking at, how to identify these codes in ICD11. So you can take note of what I've put here and mark yourself. If you get all, that's 100%, you can assign yourself the marks. But if you also didn't get all, that's perfectly fine. But at the end of it all, I will expect that you are then able to get these codes properly. If you're not able to get the codes after my presentation, then I have not done any job at all. All right, so by the end of this session, I'll expect that you're able to explain what international classification of disease is, together with other reference classifications within the WHO family of international classifications. So within that family, it is just not ICD11. We also have other reference classifications. I will make a very brief comment on this in the subsequent slides. And also I will expect you to know why international classifications are important, and describe the key features and terms that are used in international classification of diseases, and then use the coding tool to accurately code diagnosis of diseases and of causes of death. So these are my expectations of this presentation. So as a preamble, really, I like the suggestion that came from Kenya about what we should call this presentation. What really is the diagnosis? And that is often the biggest challenge that we have. And this particular slide for me is perhaps the most important, because if we appreciate the challenges associated with us clinicians referring to the same disease in different ways, then we will be able to appreciate why ICD11 is actually important. So within Kenya, I believe, and of course in many countries and across the world, there's a tendency, which is not entirely wrong, to refer to the same disease condition using different names or using abbreviations. This varies from facility to facility, from clinician to clinician, and so on. So you'll find the same, of course, typhoid fever is also called enteric fever because it's called by Salmonella typhi. Sometimes people prefer to call it salmonellosis. Then diarrhea, sometimes another doctor writes diarrhea, another doctor will write gastroenteritis, another one will even try to classify further the manifestation of malaria for purpose of treatment: diarrhea with no dehydration, diarrhea with some dehydration, diarrhea with severe dehydration. I don't know whether these classifications are still holding. When I was in the medical school and doing my clinical practice, this is how we used to classify our diarrhea. And it goes on and on. I'm sure you can come up with so many examples of the same disease condition referred to using different names or abbreviations. Also, as you know, across the world, languages vary. And these variations in language mean that the same disease is referred to using a different name. The French will refer to malaria as paludisme. Spanish will say paludismo. English will say it is malaria. So if I'm doing data analysis at a global level, I will need to know how the French call malaria and how the English-speaking countries call malaria, and so on. If I don't know this, I cannot actually pull all the data on malaria from the different countries. So these differences make consolidation of data and also comparability of data extremely difficult. And because of these differences, and we also know that within our countries, within the Ministry of Health, people who are mostly dealing with the data, the information officers, are not medically trained people. So if they're not familiar with each of these terms, when they count in cases of, say, peptic ulcer disease, they might miss a case where somebody is specific talking about duodenal ulcer, or somebody talking about gastric ulcer, and so they will miss that. So that has the potential to result into under-reporting of our conditions. Information at both national and international level. So instead of saying diarrhea, gastroenteritis, which are correctly used, and then at the time of data analysis, there is a specific code. When I enter that code, I know this code represents diarrhea. It's also the same code used for gastroenteritis. So you're able to know when you are picking your data from your database. Then it is easy for you to know, okay, this particular code, yes, I know the conditions are written differently, but this is the code representing all of them. And that's why I said the previous slide is very important. If you appreciate the importance of these differences and the challenges associated with them, you'll appreciate why ICD11 is very important. So that systematic recording of disease conditions is critically important. So within the WHO family of international classifications, there are actually 3 reference classifications. One is the International Classification of Disease, which is now on its 11th revision. I'll talk about this actually at the center of our discussion today. We have another reference classification called the International Classification of Health Interventions. These are classifications, say if somebody gave immunization services, the code for immunization is there. If you did laparotomy, the code for laparotomy is there. If you did hip replacement surgery, the code for it is there. Whichever public health intervention or clinical intervention or laboratory, whatever it is, this is the code. The ICHI is the one you'll be using for that. And also we have another classification called the International Classification of Functioning and Disability. So these are disabilities such as blindness, gaming. Actually, these days, with social media, people are playing a lot of games, and it has been identified as a disability now. So if you are obsessed with playing games online and so on, so the classification for that will be drawn from the International Classification for Functioning and Disability. So as I mentioned, the focus of our session today is on ICD11. So ICD11 is a tool, and it provides the international standard for recording, grouping, and reporting conditions, and also factors that influence both clinical, health, both in clinical practice and also in research. As I mentioned earlier, the purpose really is to ensure we are having systematic recording of disease conditions, and also helps in the analysis and interpretation and comparison of both data on deaths and on diseases. ICD, in ICD, there are specific codes or code combinations. So what I asked you to do earlier was to get these codes. And some of them, you needed to get code combinations. You can remember for malaria, there was only one code. In the others, the first 2 conditions I put, malaria and the acute respiratory syndrome, there was only one code. But there are others where you have 2 codes or 2 or more codes put together. So the ICD11 contains categories for diseases, health conditions, and also external causes of illness and death. Now, let's look at the history. It is not, ICD11 is not something, or ICD is not something that is new. The use of ICD started way, way, way before, I think over 100 years ago. In 1893, the first international classification edition, by then it was referred to as the International List of Causes of Death, was adopted by International Statistical Institute. Then in 1948, ICD11 actually was created, and at the time it was created, WHO was entrusted with the responsibility to take charge of it. And when they did that, they published what we commonly refer to as the 6th version or the 6th revision of ICD. And also it was the first time that morbidity information was incorporated. The previous ones were just looking at what is killing people and assigning the cause of death for mortality. Now, when ICD-6 was released, they included a section on the morbidity. In 1990, the 10th revision, which Kenya has been using actually probably until now, was released, and this was endorsed by the World Health Assembly then. And then recently in 2018, the 11th revision that we're talking about today was released, and it was again endorsed by all the member states of the United Nations. That includes Kenya. So all countries, actually the resolution then was that by next year, January, all countries, all the member states of the United Nations will be using ICD-11 for coding disease conditions and also for coding causes of death. So why is ICD important? If you have ICD, the different names or acronyms used for the same disease will bear the same code, which is used to count the cases instead of the names or acronyms. And this, as I mentioned earlier, eliminates the possibility of missing to count any case. And therefore, you'll be able to improve the accuracy and also completeness of the data on diseases and on deaths. Secondly, ICD is important because with ICD, you are able to properly organize your data in a database and easily use the codes to retrieve them for analysis. Thirdly, within and across countries, if everyone was using ICD, your data will be easily comparable. I can draw data at regional level from both English and French-speaking countries and analyze it and present a report. But without ICD, that level of analysis it gets a bit complicated. Importantly, also with ICD, you're able to use the code for reimbursement. We are now moving into health insurance, and Kenya is actually taking lead on this in the African region. I think the insurance will have a very strong insurance mechanism, health insurance mechanism, and this is one tool that will help in that. And together with the previous tool I talked about, the ICHI, the International Classification of Health Interventions. So you're able to actually code what interventions have I done, surgery, yes, this is a code, and then you're able to compute and actually claim your reimbursements based on that. And of course, you can generate cause of death data for health planning and monitoring in a systematic fashion, and also as well as for diseases as well. Now, let's look at the key terminologies. Here, I've divided them into two. There are those that are in orange, and there are those that are in, I think this is green. So the orange ones, I will not bother with them, but I really want you to be familiar with those which are in blue, which are in green. So you will come across actually many of these terms as you navigate through ICD-11. So it is important that you are familiar with what each one of them means. Actually, the beauty of ICD-11 compared to ICD-10 is that it is quite intuitive. It really guides you. Whatever is there, if you just follow the instructions that are there, it is very easy for you to find the codes. So we have the ICD browser, which I asked you to look at. I don't know whether you did. And as I mentioned, the browser really gives you a very quick glance into the content of ICD-11. We have the ICD coding tool, which you have just practiced on. It is where now you pick the real code. And then you have the reference guide. So if you need additional information, the reference guide is there for you. You can just log in, get the information and read. Then we'll look at the STEM codes, what they mean. We'll look at the extension codes. And we'll also look at what we call pre-coordination, post-coordination. Pre-coordination means you already have a combination that has been done for you. And actually, as ICD-11 is constantly improving, we are getting most of the conditions already pre-coordinated. Previously, you'll have to combine them to come up with a code combination, but that combination is continuously being done for us. And then it is becoming actually easier and easier. Post-coordination is where I identified the first condition. For instance, I talked about the duodenal ulcer, and then I said with acute hemorrhage. So I need to say acute duodenal ulcer has a manifestation, which is acute hemorrhage. So I need to add acute hemorrhage to duodenal ulcer. That gives me what we call post-coordination. So I'll have two chord combinations, one for duodenal ulcer, and then I add acute hemorrhage. So I've done post-coordination. Then there's cluster coding. Actually, when you put two or more codes together, you are doing cluster coding. There will be other instructional terms, such as associated with, code also, add detail, and so on. All this has condition, has causing condition, has manifestation. All these are guides that are within ICD11 that will help you to come up with your final code combination or cluster code. And there's also something we call flexible search, which we look at. It's if your first hit is not recognized, it will give you the option, do a flexible search. We'll look at an example of that. Now, the browser, which I believe you already logged into or clicked on, is the tool. I think just as I mentioned, it really helps you to understand what ICD11 is all about. Just having a quick view of what is there. Previously, we talked about in ICD11, we used to talk about the chapters. So these chapters are now easily seen actually in the ICD11 browser. Then the coding tool, which you have already played with. Within there, we have two versions. I ask you to look to the further right, where there is what we call the maintenance platform. The maintenance platform, if you click on it, you will see everything is orange. You can even try it as I'm speaking. Just go to the same home page. If you click on maintenance platform, it is further right. It's further right, I think. If you click on it, it will show you it is the maintenance platform. So this maintenance platform is where new codes are being developed. For instance, for COVID-19, it has just been recently added. I think late last year, that was when COVID-19 was added. So there is a team that is actually working to develop these codes and then include them. And actually, one of the reasons why we are making these presentations to our countries is that we have been missing. We have great institutions within our countries, but we're not contributing to the development of these tools. So it is high time we got involved. And actually, I'll be making a specific call to Kenya, the institutions in Kenya, to register and get involved in improving the ICD11 tool. And of course, also within the country, if you do have specific terms that you don't find in ICD11, compile them, send them to us actually through that maintenance page. You need to register and then you need to upload. If you find anything, the comments, you'll give it there. So it is, the maintenance page is mostly used by the experts who are developing the tool, but it doesn't mean that you cannot go there and use it. In fact, if you want the most recent information, you go to the maintenance page. The blue version, which is what I asked you to click on, which is the release version, is the version that has been released to the public. So in the blue version, you'll contain, blue version will contain the most recent, but probably not all of the most recent information, because orange version will always contain more information than the blue version, because orange version, it is improved and released like that. So the reference guide, I already said, it's where you can obtain additional information on ICD11. So when I ask you to log on to that page, you should have arrived at this specific page, which you should be seeing now. And of course, that is you already know that. You have the ICD browser, which I'm so familiar with now, and also ICD11 coding tool, which is here. And the maintenance platform, which I talked about, is right here. I don't know whether you're able to see my cursor. So this is the maintenance platform where new information is being provided and is mostly used by the experts. But I want us to be part of this team that is improving ICD11 by putting or providing information on what is common in our health facilities. Okay, so now here, this is the blue browser. Of course, sorry about that. So this one is the maintenance platform. This is now the most recent one. Actually, if you click, you should be able to find this page, the maintenance platform. So you can browse, you can get everything that you want. You can get it from here. You can see the coding tool is here. ICD11 coding tool is here. The ICF is here. The ICF which I talked about. I said ICF is International Classification for Functional Disability, and each is here. Each is for International Classification of Health Interventions. So this is where you find them. When you click on any of them, you're able to browse. I mean, you're able to do coding as well. Now, this is what I asked you to do, to try to find for me malaria. As I said, because I just said malaria, I did not specify it. Therefore, I will expect you to have actually identified IF4Z as your code. And if you didn't, then perhaps this is now the time for you to know, because I just said malaria, I didn't specify it and so on. So it is malaria IF4Z. If I was specific, Plasmodium falciparum malaria, maybe you will be able to also identify that. So this is the coding tool in the maintenance page. You can also do for COVID here as well. And then ruptured ectopic pregnancy. If you put in the search box ruptured ectopic pregnancy, you'll not find any prompt. The previous ones, actually, you can see here, when I say COVID-19, it identifies for me COVID-19. And of course, COVID-19, if you remember when we had the presentation 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I talked about the case definitions, a combination. So you say COVID-19 with either confirmed or probable or suspected. So all these options are here. So if I put ruptured ectopic pregnancy, I don't get any hit at all. So that then means I would need to do a flexible search by clicking on a flexible search to see if I can find the code for ruptured ectopic pregnancy. So the flexible search is used in the cases when the coding tool's regular search does not return any results. So you try the flexible search. So please be aware of this. Okay, let's look at the key terms now. STEM code. So the STEM codes, these are the codes that can be used alone. And actually, the beauty of ICD11 compared to ICD10 is that you previously, yes, we'll say, you need, oh, these are the conditions, STEM codes will always come first, then extension code can be added. You should not, of course, these are the things I've put here. But ICD11 automatically will do it for you. Will identify if you click a condition to know, oh, this is STEM code, it will come first. This is extension code, it comes second. So extension codes are codes that are used to add additional information to a STEM code. So in the example that I asked you to do, for instance, I think one of the things that I asked you to code was duodenal ulcer with acute hemorrhage. So acute hemorrhage is what I'll be adding to duodenal ulcer because it is the manifestation of duodenal ulcer. STEM code will be any code that can stand alone. So I can put duodenal ulcer, it stands alone, it's a STEM code. Malaria, the code that IF4Z, which we just looked at, is referred to as a STEM code because it can stand alone. Extension code, countries actually can decide how much detail should be added to a STEM code. That's why institutions like University of Nairobi and so on, any of the teaching institutions become important here to guide how much information do you need to add. I have another example somewhere down, will perhaps refer to this point again when we talk about that. How much detail do you need to add? If somebody has a fracture femur, does it matter to say it is a fracture left femur at the policy level or strategic level? Is it important? Maybe not. All that you want at the ministry, for instance, is to know how many people have fractures, not probably even by anatomical side, just how many people have sustained fractures. Or if there's a reason to plan for specifically for fracture femur, then you say, okay, how many people have fracture femur, but the laterality, which side of it doesn't really matter. So these are the details that a country decides. How much detail do you need to add when I'm coding, say, when I'm talking about fracture femur? Should I talk about fracture neck femur? Or should I talk about fracture shaft only, and so on? So extension code should never be used without a stem code. So in the cluster coding, extension code should not be listed in the first position. So all the extension codes start actually with the letter X. As I mentioned, you don't have to worry about this because as you are coding, ICD11 automatically recognizes that you are adding an extension code, it will take its position. It's only when you are copying and writing somewhere and then entering somewhere that these rules apply for you. Otherwise, if you're coding online, it's very easy for you. Then a cluster code, I mentioned this already. When you have two or more codes put together, they are referred to as a cluster code. So a cluster code may have only a stem code, and in such case, the codes are combined by a forward slash. You can see the example is here. Duodenal ulcer with acute hemorrhage. Here, I'm using the slash sign. So if you see something like this, it means both of these are stem codes. Then a cluster code may have a stem code and an extension code. And in this case, they are combined using the upper sand sign. This one here, there's the sign is for addition. So an example is here, cellulitis of the index finger. So we are combining it using the and or the upper sand sign. So post-coordination, I already explained this. The act of putting two codes together in a cluster coding is what is referred to as post-coordination. In the previous example, I will start by saying cellulitis, okay? Cellulitis of index finger. You can see there are two things here. Cellulitis 1, and then which side, that the anatomical side of the cellulitis is the extension code, the index finger. So I'm combining. So when I'm putting this together, I'm actually doing what we call post-coordination. So anytime you're adding an additional code to the existing stem code, you are doing post-coordination. So for some conditions, post-coordination is mandatory. We'll look at the specific examples of this. You have to add additional detail to the stem code. When this is the case, you'll actually see on the right side of the screen a pink circle. I'll give you an example of this. For some diseases, post-coordination is optional. That is, if you so wish, you can add additional detail to the stem code. And if that is the case, you will see a gray circle with a plus sign. So let's look at this specifically here. So you see this gray sign where my arrow is pointing, it is gray circle with a plus sign means there's something to post-coordinate, which is optional. You may choose to post-coordinate or not choose to post-coordinate. If you choose to, then you click on where it is written detail, you'll add. It will take you to what you need to find, maybe has a causing condition and so on. Then the pink one is what I just talked about, where it is mandatory. Whenever you are doing coding in ICD11, the moment you see the pink circle, always be on the lookout for it. The moment you see the pink circle, it means there is any additional detail which you must add. Then we have the J, means actually that the additional categories in the maternal chapter. And then we have this green circle with this so many black lines inside. It is just a guide. If you click on that circle, it will take you to a page where you'll be able to read more, get more information, and so on. Okay, so before we practice, let us look at what is referred to ICD as instructional terms. We have not looked at all the key terms as I mentioned earlier, but please practice, make sure you are familiar with each of those terms. It is very easy in ICD11. You just need to be constantly in ICD11 to appreciate whatever is there. You'll actually realize that it is very easy to use, very, very easy to use ICD11. So as I mentioned, users you'll come across terms such as associated with, code also, add detail, has causing condition, has a manifestation, and so on. So just be on the lookout for these terms, and they are important for you to add these details. Okay, so let us see if you can practice. I will stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to see if I can open, sorry. I'll see if I can Are you able to see can you confirm if you're able to see my screen with ICD coding? Just let someone confirm for me that you're able to see my screen, and we can then code together. Hello?
Yes, Benson, we can.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the first thing I asked you to code was malaria. So all that you do is if you type malaria, it will start already the search for you. Okay. So in this case, as I mentioned earlier, I did not say malaria was specified or anything. So the code then I expect it to pick will be IF4Z. So if I just click on it, it adds itself up here. So you can try that on your screen as well. You can try that on your screen as well. You can put your thumbs up and so on if you have got it. You can just put this time I think I did request that all participants are able to communicate. So if you go to the sections where you can react, you can put your thumbs up if you have got it. Then the second condition that I asked you to code, let me see if I can get it, is severe acute respiratory syndrome. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, and if okay, I seem to have messed up. Let's stop share. Okay, so severe acute respiratory syndrome. So what happens is that when you get in ICD11, when you get a direct hit, it is always highlighted blue, like as you're seeing. I don't know whether you're able to see blue, either blue or light blue on my screen. So if you get a direct hit, this is what you will get. So the code again, if you just click on this code, you will get ID 65. That becomes the code, the severe acute respiratory syndrome. You can try that and just be sure that you have got the same code. Okay. Then the third code that let me just what I'm going to do is I don't want to be switching through this. I'm going to photograph it and put on my phone. Then the third code that I want us to practice is diabetic cataract due to type 1 diabetes. I don't know whether anyone got it correctly among the participants. The challenge of virtual training is that you can't see the reaction from the participant. So I'm going to put diabetic cataract, diabetic cataract. So you see, I get a direct hit when I put diabetic cataract here. But on my right, I see the pink circle. I said, when you see the pink circle, it means there is something else you need to add, which is mandatory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the pink circle or just click on the detail. It takes me to another page. So I arrive at this page. I don't know whether you're able to see it. Hilary, maybe you can just confirm that you're able to see this page.
Yes, please.
Okay, so you'll see somewhere here under post coordination. This is my cursor under post coordination, where you see the pink circle with the plus sign inside. It says mandatory post-coordination. And when I click on mandatory post-coordination, it takes me to a page. And there are many options that will come based on the condition you are coding. One is has causing condition. And I wanted us to code diabetic cataract due to type 1 diabetes. And therefore, if that is the case, it means I will look at has causing condition, then I have the options here. Sometimes it is easy even to search the second option, just to type the condition here and it gives it to you. So in this case, our type 1 diabetes mellitus actually is here. All that you do is we click on this, okay? And when you click on this, it adds it to the first stem code. And remember, I said in cluster coding, when you have two stem codes put together, you'll see a slash, a forward slash shine. So when you see this, it means both of these are stem codes. And all that you will do is you select this and you have your code. Your code combination, it comes here. You can then copy this and put it somewhere where you're entering data, or when you're using an electronic medical record system, it automatically goes to a page where all the codes are put together. Then the third that I want us to code is open fracture of the shaft of the left tibia. That's a more complex one. Open fracture, you can write it down and also try to do that. Open fracture of the shaft of the left tibia. Open fracture of the shaft of the left tibia. So the first attempt you can always try is to say, okay, let me say, just put everything open fracture of the shaft of the left tibia. So you see, this is not giving me anything. It is asking me to do a flexi search. Even if I do flexi search, I'm sure it will not give me anything, because it is so many things put together. Of course, there are many things here, fracture of shaft of tibia, left tibial shaft, and then you don't have something on the open and so on. So you can even come here, actually, fracture of shaft of tibia, left tibial shaft. So you find there are so many code combinations here. You can go even through any of these, okay? So if you click, say, for instance, under my flexi search, I get fracture of shaft of tibia, left. So I can click on that. It adds me a combination. There are two already there, the stem code and an extension code. But I need to add open fracture, okay? I need to add open fracture because this is shaft of tibia left, and then I need to add open fracture. So if I add my open, I need to click here and come again to my post coordination. And if I click here, it will be able to give me certain things. So one is we already have the left is there. Okay, so what we have here is a combination for the fracture of the tibia, and this KNH is for the left side of the tibia. But we want the shaft and it must be open fracture. So let's look at the fracture type. We don't have anything here. Then if you go further down, you should be able to find something on open fracture. It is here. Okay, something open fracture is there, and we need also something on the shaft, because it is the shaft of the tibia that's we're interested in. So if I come here, I'll find my tibia shaft. So you select that. Of course, normally this will be over coordination. You should not really coordinate up to this, because we're doing training, we're trying to learn. I'm just trying to show you. So having 4 codes put together is sometimes regarded as over coordinating or over post coordination of a condition. So this is where actually I said, is it necessary to have in your reports or in your database or in your DHIS2 fracture of the shaft of the left femur open and so on? Is it necessary for decision making? Because decisions can just be made on how many fractures are there in the country and so on, and that will inform how much post coordination you need to do. And the second and last I want us to do together is duodenal ulcer with acute hemorrhage. Duodenal ulcer with acute hemorrhage. Again, this is telling me, this again is giving me a flexible search. So when you get sometimes conditions like this, what you do is you break it down. You need to break it down. So let us start with the duodenal ulcer. Okay, when you break it down, you can start with the duodenal ulcer. Is the spelling? I think it's the spelling, duodenal. Yeah. Okay, so you see here, the duodenal ulcer is here. We have it, but I want, of course, when I look to the right, it is a gray circle, which means post-coordination is available, but not mandatory. Because we are practicing, I'm saying we need to add the manifestation of the duodenal ulcer. So if I click on my gray circle, I again come to my post-coordination. I'm interested in has manifestation. So you can see here, has manifestation here is acute gastrointestinal bleeding. So this is what we're looking for. You just click on it and you have already got your code combination. It comes all here. Then the last one I want us to practice together is a meningoencephalitis due to viral infection. So meningoencephalitis due to viral infection. Let's see if it gets us. Again, it is asking us to do a flexible search. Again, we can break it down. You can do flexible search if you want to, but you can break it down. And then we see what else we have. So here we have our meningoencephalitis. It is here. It is blue. It is a direct hit. But on the right side, you have the pink circle with a black plus sign inside, which means there will be additional detail that is mandatory that needs to be added. So if I click on that, I'll come here and then I'll have my click here to open the browser. Now, we are looking for due to viral infection. So viral infection here. Here we have viral infection of the central nervous system, but here we have viral encephalitis, not elsewhere classified, acute, and the viruses here are not really what is required in this exercise that we are looking for. So let us try to search. Let's just say we say viral infection and see if there's anything we get at all. Okay, so you see unspecified, because our virus here, it was an unspecified one. That's a viral infection. We didn't say it is of the cerebrum or anything. We took just unspecified. We get another code actually here. This is the one we are looking for. So all that you do is you click on that. When you click on that, it means there are two stem codes that are put together, ID 01.Y, and then of course this other one, ID 9Z. So all that you do is you select this, and your code comes here, and you can then copy and take it to where you're entering your data. So these are the few examples I can share with you. And before I stop, I want us to talk about really what this all means for Kenya. And as I said, Kenya has already been implementing ICD11, but the national implementation of ICD11 hasn't happened. And it's not only Kenya, it is all the countries in the African region. So it means we need to do more. We need to do more, and that starts with you who are on the ground, and appreciating, one, the value of ICD11 and why it is important to use it for systematic recording of disease conditions. So we need to work together to try to set the agenda for this. So a bit of advocacy and also disseminating information on ICD11, and again asking the government and those who are from the government picking this up. It is important for senior people in the country to really appreciate the importance of ICD11 in clinical coding and reporting. Second thing is ICD11 now, as opposed to the previous versions of ICD, is now an electronic tool. It's an online. The offline version that is available. But to implement it, it needs arrangements for internet and IT infrastructure. So many countries have found it a bit challenging because of this, because of internet access and IT infrastructure. But Kenya, I know, a few years ago had, I think, rolled out internet access to a number of facilities, if not all facilities. So Kenya actually is at an advantage. Then again, the point we talked about last time, students coming out of medical schools with the knowledge of the need to have systematic recording of causes of death and diseases. Very important. If these things can be put in the curriculum for training students, medical students, it really be very, very important. And transition in Kenya from ICD-10 to ICD-11, we already have plans for that. We are supporting the countries in the region to move now from ICD-10 to ICD-11. Some of our countries got stuck in ICD-9. We are moving them into ICD-11. There are several steps involved in that, so I'm not going to go into that. But I'm sure Kenya already has a very competent team, and they're doing that, I believe. Lastly is the integration of ICD. Now we are moving into electronic medical record systems. Kenya has also, of course, has now probably rolled out the digital health platform into a few hospitals, I believe. And in that digital health platform, we already have embedded ICD-11. We need to embed ICHI and we need to embed ICF, so that when people are using these tools, electronic tools for medical records, a doctor is able to automatically assign a cause of death. When I make a diagnosis of cause of death, this will be a page where I click and automatically code. I don't need to again wait for somebody else to come and start doing the coding. So integrating these tools into existing electronic medical record system is very important. We are supporting the countries now even to make sure the DHIS2 is able to embed ICD-related tools. So I will stop here, and there are several more slides down, which I will leave with the team in Kenya. You can practice on your own. There are many more slides down just for you to practice. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Drotti, for that. It's been quite a class, even on my end. Actually, I tried out the first exercise that you did, and I got no results for the open fracture shaft of the left tibia, but I've seen how you've been able to go about it, and I'm sure our participants have been very active trying to practice this. Thank you so much for that. For those who have joined us late, we've been going through the ICD-11, and we've had a very elaborate presentation. You can type in your question and answers in the Q&A. I'm not sure if there are some who have raised their hands. Let me check. I'm not seeing any. I hope we've all been able to follow through the ICD-11 and the classification. Maybe I'll give a chance to Dr. Kipruto, Dr. Hilary Kipruto. Maybe you can share something as we wait for the Q&A.
No, thank you, Doc. I think for us, the reflections by Benson, I think the idea now is how do we move forward in terms of implementation of ICD-11 within the MCCOD framework. So the first step, of course, is to standardize the MCCOD. I think a couple of weeks back, Benson did elaborately give indications in terms of how do you make sure that the country level you're able to standardize that MCCOD, that you're able to capture this particular information. The second component now is the integration of the ICD-11 into the tools that are being used. Quite aware that a number of hospitals and health facilities are using electronic system at the hospital level. Most of the major hospitals are already doing that. So our guidance is that if they can integrate this within the ICD-11, and it usually would help to capture the diagnosis, either the initial and the final diagnosis. And also the other important component as well is that within WHO, there's a new tool which now integrates and able to support the analysis of this particular data as it emerges. So part of the suite of tools being worked on by WHO is also to take you to the next mile. It's not enough only to, yes, standardize your diagnosis, standardize the reporting of the underlying causes of death. But what is also equally important is that particular ability to be able to now analyze that particular data. And of course, the most important component is the action. What action do you take from there after you've analyzed your data? So there's a new tool which was launched, I think, last week, called ANA Code 3, able to analyze for you, and this is specifically for mortality data, which is quite structured. It's able to pick out some of the errors that you would incur in putting together this data. So the push from our side is to make sure that the clinician is empowered, one, to capture the proper codes for diagnosis, and also to make decisions at that particular point. So working with our colleagues in IT as well, and this guidance is that I think Benson did allude to the fact that within that particular platform, there is technical guidance in terms of if you wanted to adopt this, what are the specific guidance that either a facility would need to go through, or if you require guidance, and I think Benson has mentioned the team in Kenya are well trained and they can be able to provide that particular support. And if need be, I think within the regional office, we are able to provide whatever support or either technical guidance that either teams would require in terms of moving this forward. So Benson, I don't know whether you want to talk briefly about the analytic tools. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hilary. Yes, indeed. Yes, we do have tools. Specifically, we have tools for analysis of ICD coded mortality data. The ANA code. We're now talking about ANA code 3. I think we can be specific. I think will concern more people who are involved in analysis of data, ICD coded data. And there are many questions on the chat, and I can attempt to answer some of them. Starting with Caroline. Caroline is asking if ICD is language sensitive. The answer is between the British version of English and the American version. The answer is no. Actually, it is quite intuitive. It will be able to pick whatever you're trying to type. Then Stephen is asking how to transition from ICD, how to transition to ICD-10 from an earlier version. This is a question I try to avoid because the explanation will be fairly long. One is, what happens is that there is already existing data that have been collected using the earlier version of ICD-10. We do have tools that help to match this. Now, our guidance to countries is this: they should never wait for this matching to happen. They can already, a country can just cut off now, say, okay, from today moving forward, we'll start implementing ICD11, and then we work with the data that was being collected using ICD10 and see how to record them, or use the tables that are used for matching. So that's exactly what we're doing now with the countries. So the tools are there, and if Kenya needs support in this area, of course, we'll be happy to support you with that. As I mentioned, Kenya has a number of experts. We also pick, when we go to train other countries, we also pick teams from Kenya to go and train actually. So we can actually just piggyback on the expertise that is available in the country to do many of these activities around ICD11 and medical certification of cause of death. Rakesh rather wanted to know how to change from ICD11 to, how to change to ICD10, because they already have ICD10 in their medical, in the hospital records. I think the same answer really. It does. On that page, there's what we call the API and the coding tool. All that you need to do is to disconnect ICD10 and embed, reconnect to the ICD API, ICD11 API, and the coding tool. You have to do two of them together. And if you need help with that, again, we are available to support you on that. So it is just disconnecting ICD10 and embedding ICD11 API and the coding tool, and you'll be ready to go. Then Irene said she has been attending and has never received a token. Irene, I think, yes. WHO, as WHO, we actually don't issue certificates, but we are beginning, actually, there is what will be coming up early next year, what we call the WHO Academy. We have a particular specific session on ICD11 and medical certification of cause of death. We are identifying a university that can issue a certificate related to attendance and so on and so on. But what's important is that you have the knowledge, and I think the knowledge is very important. And if you put that also in your CV to say, I'm an expert on ICD11, and if somebody doesn't believe, they can ask the questions during interviews, and you cast the questions, and that's fine. Then can ICD11 be installed on a phone? Yes, it has adaptive features. You can actually even download it right now on your phone and just play with it on your phone. So there are many more, I think, questions. I don't know. Let me see. There is a, malaria unspecified in ICD11 is IF4Z, while in ICD10 is B54. Looks like there's an overhaul of, it's not an overhaul of all codes, but I can double check this with the colleagues who are working on this to check. I've taken note of this, and we'll check and probably come back to you through the Kenya office and so on. Can slides be shared? Yes, of course. The slides have already been sent to the organizers in Kenya, and all of you should have access to that. And also, as we said last time, feel free to use them. If you have any presentations to make, feel free to use them. If you have any questions at all, get back in touch with us, and we'll be able to fix some of the issues, if any. Then the details and specifics required in ICD11 requires improved clinical and laboratory capacity, which are not there in most facilities in our countries. Any support in improving this, otherwise we'll end up with unspecified cases. Actually, if it's about the use of ICD11, it is the easiest tool ever anyone can use. Just try to practice and you will see. And of course, the rollout of this has a training component. We're not saying that you should just deploy ICD11 or any tool built on ICD11, deploy them to facilities without training the health workers that are there. People who are down, who are collecting data and entering data and so on, should know how to use ICD11 to code diseases and causes of death. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the rollout should be strategic. And we're not saying deploy in all hospitals at once. You can start, all health facilities, you can start small. Start small and then expand until you reach as many facilities as possible. But the bottom line is, it is very easy to use, and all health workers in Kenya should know how to code using ICD11. Thank you. Yeah,
so Benson, maybe the other addition was around the, I think one of the colleagues did ask about the translation. I think just to mention that there is a translation table which allows you to translate the ICD-10 codes into ICD-11 equivalent codes. So what Benson was referring as when you are transitioning and you want to, if you choose that you want also to have previous codes which are on ICD-10 into ICD-11. So there is a translation table which allows you to convert the already existing codes in ICD-10 into ICD-11. And I think a number of colleagues from Kenya are well versed with this. I think there is Samuel Chebret, there is Momo, Jeremiah, there is Wanjala. So a number of colleagues can be able to provide this guidance if you want to translate data which you already have in ICD-10 into ICD-11 equivalent. For the purposes of statistical continuity, if at the facility level, the feeling is that you want to have this data in ICD equivalent, ICD-11 equivalent data set. Over to you, Benson.
Yeah, thank you. I think nothing more really to add. I'm just checking if there are additional questions. So there's anonymous attendee. Okay, so I think Agnes.
Yes.
Or you're responding to Agnes, I think, or I don't know. This we have done severally, including being advised to fill Q forms.
Yes, let me address that.
Okay.
So thank you so much, participants, for being with us till now, and really thank you to Dr. Drote and Dr. Kipruto for your advice and this very informative session. I think the other very concerns are about the CPD points, and for the CPD points, I'll have to find out more information, but you can email your details to knhcpd@gmail.com. I know there's been a delay on the from the pharmacy side. There's a way you need to pre-register the session, whereby you write the topic in your specific login for the pharmacists. You pre-register the session, and usually a list is sent out that they compare and see that you've attended. So this one I'll need more information to give you the specific details on how to go about it, but you need to pre-register. And also from the nursing side, we are in communication with the nursing council to see how best we can make the CPD faster. But for the other cadres, for the medical doctors, I've not been getting a lot of questions on this. I hope you've been receiving your CPD points. Usually they are sent via the email that you used to register with. And you can also check from your spam folder that you're receiving your CPD points, usually between 2 weeks from the session. About the sharing of the slides, we'll be able, the session will be online at the KNH website. You'll also be able to view it from the YouTube. And for the specific slides, we'll see how best to share them out, but you can also send your email to the knhresearch@gmail.com and request for the slides. Maybe it will be easier to share them out that way. I'll not see any more. So for now, I think we'd like to really come towards, we've come towards the end of this session. We've been talking about the ICD11. And I'll just give, even before sharing what the next sessions will be, I'll just give this chance for our presenter to give their last comments. Dr. Benson Drote, you can give your last comments, followed by Dr. Kipruto, and then we call it a wrap.
Yeah, thank you so much, Agnes. I think my last comment is that I want to see a center of excellence in Kenya on ICD11 and medical certification of cause of death. And just help me identify the center. That's really what's important for me. Thank you.
Agnes, I think from my side, nothing much, just to say the tools are available for use by healthcare workers. They've been made widely available. As Benson has mentioned, early next year, the WHO Academy, one of the courses that we'll be launching will be on ICD11. And it will contain all sorts of services, and it will be a kind of like a certified course. So we want to encourage colleagues to watch out when the call for the training is put up to register in numbers, and we remain available to provide any support that might be required. Over to you, Agnes. Thanks.
Thank you very much. As you can see on our screens, we have a session, a very interesting session coming up tomorrow. We have our fifth COVID-19 and pregnancy, COVID-19 and pregnancy session. And tomorrow we are going to be focusing on ongoing research in Kenya. You're very welcome to attend. It will be at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Be sure to attend. It's usually a very packed session with a lot of information. We also have another session in the afternoon, if you can. Yes, this will be in the afternoon. Yes, at 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. We're going to be talking about mental health matters for pediatrics, and we have our presenters there, as you can see. So you're very welcome to join us in these sessions tomorrow, and even on the oncoming session. We've now come to the end of this webinar. And I just want to appreciate everyone for attending. We appreciate our presenters, and be sure to practice on this ICD. I personally know I'll need to practice some more to get all the codings right. But we really do appreciate this very informative session. Thank you, and do have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.